What's going on there, folks? Earthmaster here. It is January 19th, 2019. 1/19/2019. Okay, 9:08 p.m. here on the West Coast here in California, and a pretty busy day in the earthquake world there. Most recent large earthquake right here striking near Chile at a 6.7 magnitude and occurring roughly around 53 kilometers below the surface. I do not believe there was any type of tsunami statement with this earthquake that happened. It did happen earlier, but as far as I know, there was definitely no tsunami generated with that pretty large earthquake. They have seen larger earthquakes in the past, but this is a pretty good size one, right? 6.7 magnitude earthquake, but it's definitely in an area where we could see upwards of a magnitude 9. So we'll keep an eye on that. I don't believe one's going to happen, but you never know. Since then, they've had quite a few aftershocks there, a couple middle fours right there, and it looks like a little deeper earthquake there with a 4.6 that occurring just north of that region at 253 kilometers below the surface here. So interesting activity, but they are no stranger to large earthquakes. Trust me. 6.0 occurring earlier today out here in the Pacific Ocean, just south of Mexico. They call it the Northern East Pacific Rise area. That earthquake, 6.0, occurring at about 10 kilometers below the surface. And that's not the only large earthquake. A little bit older one happening over here on the other part of the Pacific Plate, with a 6.0 earthquake near Vanuatu, about 76 kilometers west of that region, or west-northwest of that region, occurring at 45 kilometers below the surface. And the activity continues. I mean, you can almost pretty much follow a line of earthquakes around the very active Pacific Plate today. Absent of activity is up here in the north, although we did see a couple fours up here off of the Russia region, and you can see that line of older earthquakes, right? You can kind of see that line of older earthquakes, 5.0 to 4.9 to 4.4. Looks like they get newer as it progresses up towards the north from that 5.0. You see what I'm talking about, folks? The red line indicating older earthquakes, while the pink medium time frame there to the newest earthquakes in the white rings, but not necessarily in that order, I guess. You know, it just happened to be that way, right? Coincidence? 5.1 also occurring south of that region I was just discussing there. So just very active, a cluster of 5s and 4s over here around the Indonesia region. It's just a lot of activity over the last 24 hours or so. West Coast, pretty quiet. I'll get to that here in just a second. You can see a 5.7 there. Older earthquake occurring in South America, well north of the Chile earthquake that happened today. That 5.7 there, a little deep. What do we get? 103 kilometers below surface there for that 5.7. And just a lot of action, folks. Moving, the plates are moving. Plate tectonics are taking place, right? Most recent earthquake right now, according to the USGS on the Earthquake 3D globe, is this 4.6 occurring. Let me get a location here for you. That occurred about 38 kilometers below surface in Zamog, China. Zamog, I think, is the correct pronunciation. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. Please correct me. Anyway, 38 kilometers for that 4.6, the most recent earthquake right there. And yeah, it's just pretty active. These older quakes here in the red, down in Southern California, and also a little bit of activity in Texas, Wow, that was pretty weird. Texas and Oklahoma region. Yeah, that's pretty old. I believe that's even past the 24-hour window there, so I'm not for sure exactly why they're on the earthquake 3D globe, but it is what it is. Taking a look at the USGS 7-day magnitude, 7 days, all magnitudes in the U.S. This here is the region of the Salton Sea in Southern California. This little bit of activity, swarming going on. Is continuing. It's lightening up a little bit, but I did discuss this in my last update video of the importance of all this activity down here. It's a good thing it may be calming down. Looks like there may be 2 separate locations of where the swarming is actually taking place. You can see the cluster here within about looks like a mile, maybe 2 miles of each other. 2 independent cluster of quakes. Nothing big. They did have a couple 3s and 2s and some 1s, but nothing above that, which is good. But it is right in the area where the San Andreas fault section, the lock section, tends to end, right? But it doesn't really end. It kind of extends to a new fault. The Brawley fault zone. You got the town of Brawley to the south of the activity here that's taking place near the Salton Sea. That fault line, which is the red line, the thin red line, I should say, extends down through the Salton Sea area to where this activity is taking place. The importance of this is that this here is in an area where, I'm sure you've heard it many times, where the scientists and the professional folks are worried. The geologists are, saying that this is an area that we need to watch that could unzip a major earthquake. That southern section, of course, anywhere along the San Andreas fault section is dangerous, right? But this specific section down here is one of concern and just an area to watch. They've had swarms in the past, but no major earthquake followed it. But with all the activity, with all the movement, with all the plate tectonics going on, and now with this new swarm here, it's something to watch. There's also a little swarm south of Brawley down here. You can see near Imperial. These little yellow circles indicating older earthquakes. The orange ones are the more recent earthquakes. And of course, red would be within the last hour. So, calming down around Imperial. Earthquake activity, that is. But still some activity up there near Salton Sea with the orange earthquakes there. Orange circles, I should say. It's just something to watch, folks. One of these days it's going to happen. It's going to be a big one. But of course, along the North American plate and the Pacific plate out here, that's a plate boundary. And there's going to be some action. There's going to be some locking. There's going to be some movement, some slips, and some slow slips, and all those technical words there that people use. It's going to happen. A lot of activity out here in Nevada if you take a look at it, though. See all that activity out here in Nevada, portions of Utah as well. So a lot of activity with the North American plate for the most part. Yellowstone has not been affected by it. A lot of times when we see activity out here, we tend to look to see what's going on up at Yellowstone, but it's pretty inactive at the moment in the Intermountain West region up there. Although it does show a little bit of activity. Of course, this is 7 days of activity, but that's all older earthquake. But you can kind of get a better view of what's going on out here just by looking at this picture. Quite a bit of activity out here underneath the North American plate here, right up along the old American Craton boundary right there, that section that has been relatively stable there for billions of years, maybe not billions, but millions of years, while the rest of the land around it either subducts or rises in the mountains, and all that good stuff. So moving on, folks. Let's see what else I got here. Let's go over here. This here was a Chile earthquake here. I already discussed that with that 6.7. 6.7 earthquake that happened there. Just a general location right around the Chile region there. Let's move on here to where I was going to check out. That's the most recent California, Nevada earthquake map there from the Caltech website. Like I say, other than the activity down south near the Salton Sea region, most of California is pretty quiet on the surface, that is. When we go to the slow slip movements, I kind of want to show you guys this here. This here is the last 2 days of activity underneath the land, the Cascadia subduction zone. In Northern California, there's quite a bit of activity. Kind of see a line of activity. You see those little red circles there? Interesting, very interesting. It could show the pressure or the movement in general right there underneath the land there. Just a line of earthquakes west of Redding, extending over towards the coast, and then to the north of Redding. And then we got a fairly large cluster occurring well north of Redding and Mount Shasta region, kind of in the northwest corner of California. Just interesting activity to see that line of subduction, that line of slow slippage. So, like I've said in the past, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Sometimes when it's awfully quiet, when we have no slippage at all, that's kind of worrisome. It's wondering what's going on. Is more pressure building? But then again, if we have subduction here, slow slippage, is that increasing pressure on an area that's not subducting or that's not slow slipping? Yes. So in my knowledge and stuff like that, that's a time to watch when we're actually having slow slip events happen. So we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. But for the most part, folks, relatively quiet on this beautiful blue planet here. Looks like we got another 4.4. Maybe I checked that already. Oh, is that right? Yeah, 4.4 is the latest earthquake right now down in Chile, with expected aftershocks continuing down there following that big earthquake. So that's definitely expected. Alright, folks, I think I got everything covered here. If I didn't, then I will probably be hitting myself in the head after I upload the video. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Yellowstone. I was going to cover that real quick here. That 6.7 showing up on some of those seismograph stations here in Yellowstone National Park, with that little blue-red type signature on the majority of the seismograph stations right there. Up at Parker Peak on the northeast corner, nothing to worry about. That looks like some type of instrument adjustment or sensitivity adjustment. So other than that, no earthquake, no magma flow, no impending doom from Yellowstone. In fact, the swarming looks like it may have completely stopped, except for a couple small minor micro quakes happening. Looks like right around Norris Junction. But other than that, pretty quiet up there in Yellowstone. All right, folks, have a good night. Take care. Be prepared. And we'll catch you folks later. Have a good night.